All right, still with us, we have criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor David Bruno. You know, this is such a layered case, but one of the things that really caught the attention of our producer was the fact that you're dealing with a former law enforcement officer. How would that come into play here?
Well, I'll tell you what, it really depends on the facts of the case. And we have the surveillance video, and it's really going to be tough to beat this one, I would imagine, right? Because you have to objectively and subjectively reasonably fear that the deadly force is necessary right there. And this is a man that's not armed. The decedent is not armed. And it doesn't look like there's even a punch there. It looks like there's popcorn being thrown. So it becomes very fact specific. The judge's decisions haven't helped the defense at all. And this man is exposed to a second-degree charge in Florida because of it.
Yeah, so since you are a criminal defense attorney, what do you do if you're his lawyer?
Look, you got to show that it was objectively reasonable. And what that means is not only did this individual think he needed to use deadly force in that circumstance, but also a reasonable person in the same situation of the defendant would have felt the same way. And that's where you got to get to. You got to get to really presenting the case to the jury to put them into the seat so that they could feel the same way as the defendant. Because it's not just what the defendant felt at the time, but it's that reasonable person standard that also gets brought into the analysis that you have to convince that the reasonable person would do the same. And again, we're not in a situation where it's gun on gun. That's always difficult for defense attorneys when deadly force is used. We saw it in Florida, the George Zimmerman case, but I see it very, very differently. And I think in the end, it comes out very different. Based on what I've seen and I know, I believe the man will be convicted.
Wow, that is a bold statement, you know, pre-trial. I guess my other follow-up question to you is that cell phone video, and it's showing us, you know, it's showing us what happened, but maybe some of the conversations that happened and where audio was not picked up, could that be really critical to this case?
Yeah, well, look, we just heard statements from both the decedent's wife and the defendant. So the prosecutor and the defense attorneys have it in the record. And in the end, the defendant's going to have to make a decision, and we know he has a constitutional right not to testify. But if he does, and he comes out with new information that was not said on the initial interview, I think if anything, that's what comes in as that former law enforcement. Because you would expect law enforcement to know exactly how important that interrogation and statement was shortly after the incident. And if he comes out with additional statements that caused him concern or is argued that it establishes deadly force, well, then questionable at best. And I would cross-examine him about the prior inconsistencies or the omissions, because he's a law enforcement officer and he would know how important those statements are.
Fair point. Thank you so much for your analysis. Criminal defense attorney, former prosecutor David Bruno joining us. Up next.